HiSec BuyBack offers a 90% JITA anywhere in HiSec. Simply go to hisec.evebuyback.com, appraise your items, create a contract, and get paid quickly.
Welcome to Talking Stations. Today is Wednesday the 25th of August. I'm Richman, your host, with Gugoran.
Good evening.
Domanark.
Good evening.
And Shen.
Hello, hello.
We will be talking about the new player experience and the changes to the skill queues and new player experience features. But for today's show, things will be at a slower, calmer pace as we cover the things we couldn't cover quite in detail yesterday. We'll start this off with the Keepstar yesterday. This Keepstar, while seemingly like any other Keepstar, is actually the last Keepstar in Delve. There are no more, to my knowledge, there are no more PAPI Keepstars in Delve now. And Domanark, with the war escalating down, will the Bastion be returning to Fountain, their old space before the war?
That is, we are currently in the process of doing that now. Yes, we've been assigned or given our base, and we're in the process of getting things organized and moved. So we are returning to Fountain, as everyone assumed or anticipated. So,
now I do remember the Imperium. Well, Goonswarm itself had rental programs in period basis and Quirius, but I never saw them achieve much success compared to the rental programs up in Fountain of Infensus, was it?
Infensus was our rental alliance, correct? If you were renting space from the Bastion, you would put your corp in Infensus. The Goons soiree into renting was very, very limited, and like I said, I think you hit on the head. It wasn't very successful. They didn't really pursue it very much. Given that they had income coming in from a lot of other places, for the Bastion, that rental was our main source of income. It was by far our main source of income. But going forward, there's no renting, and the Imperium is not doing any renting. So Initiative and us are both were renting, and we're not going to be doing that now.
Oh, what will the Bastion be getting after things settle in Fountain? I see there's a lot of sovereignty that's essentially empty.
We'll be in the northern central part, Minotaur. Damn, I'm gonna draw a blank on the names. Dang it. Okay, we have 3 constellations. The north middle part of Fountain.
Very well. What is the situation like in Fountain right now? What's going on?
Quiet-ish. Not a lot of activity from what I consider our enemies, or combatants. A little bit here and there, just kind of people watching, trying to pick off somebody doing something dumb. A lot of rebuilding. Yeah, it's a rebuild phase. We've got to get our infrastructure put back in place. Everybody knows when we lost our spot in Fountain, we lost all our structures. I mean, everything. Keepstar down to the Atharns, they're all gone. Some of them we pulled up. I mean, they were all destroyed, but some of them pulled up. So we've got to go through that process of putting the right structures in the right spot. So we have our team of our superstar experts engineering that out to make sure we've got the things we need where we need them, and people are able to move their stuff into the places that they want. So if you want to mine, you'll be in the system that has the better mining, and then we'll have our places where we want our PvPers to be. So it's a slow process, as everybody knows how long it takes to put anchor structures and things like that, and we don't want to do it crazy, throw anything anywhere. We're trying to be very meticulous on how we put things together and make sure it looks right, and it's the best for us, and it falls in line with what the overarching plan is, to guard things.
So the last time, like, the Imperium rebuilt, so if we go backwards in time, so last time the Imperium rebuilt, they were moving from up in the Declan area down to the New Delve area, and they made some pretty significant changes to the way everything was organized. And I say the Imperium as a whole because the reorganization was focused on, like, how each member alliance fit into the Imperium as a whole. So in the previous structure, each group sort of had their own little constellation or their own little region, and it was a patchwork of member states, so to speak. And then when they moved down to the Delve model, it was sort of Goonswarm, for the most part, owned a large portion of the infrastructure, and everybody was like intermingled. Pilots would be flying everywhere. Some people or some groups had their flags on different spots, but for the most part, everybody seemed to just fly all in the same space and be all like space communism type thing in the same area. Are we expecting to return to that sort of space communism, at least for what it looked like from the outside in? Or are we expecting more reworks or changes?
I think it's going to be. I wasn't with them when they did the first, but it was it used to be the Imperium or CFC had all their satellite alliances of the coalition on the outside ring of them, right? To not necessarily keep them intermingling, but make sure there was no mistakes made between groups, right? Keep them separated. And whether this is part of the planning or not, I don't know, but it gives a buffer for the Imperium, for the CFC. They had a buffer there. Well, that system didn't work, right? It didn't work. You had not, I'm not going to name names. I don't know what, wasn't with them then, but different alliances were stronger than others. So you had weak points in their defensive, mode. So when they did move down to Delve, that time they kind of took once again, I still wasn't with them yet at this point. So this is just what I've learned. They took a reversal of that. They put all the satellite alliances in the middle with goons all around them. So like Bastion, Lawn, TNT, Brothers, BOA, we're all kind of in the center of Delve with the Imperium all around them, right? Which works really well for those small alliances. They're protected. They definitely have a much more. They can definitely punch above their weight because they're part of the bigger group. And really part of the bigger group. Bastion at the time had 2 systems. That's all they. And that wasn't enough for the 2 systems. Wasn't enough, so it felt crowded, and we didn't feel like we had our own flag. Like I said, we flag, but we didn't feel like our own personality or anything like that. So we decided, against the advice of Imperium upper management, we wanted to go down the fountain. So we did that the first time just to get ourselves our own identity and things like that. And I think we're still kind of in that mode, and it worked until the big war. I mean, it was working. So you'll see Initiative and Bastion in the Fountain again. Allies working together, working with the Imperium, but all 3, of those 3 have their own area that they can call home, and that they will have to work and defend and be able to have their own identity, which is going to be good for us. I believe French Connection will also be down there with us. I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but that's the rumor. So Initiative obviously will have the lion's share of Fountain because they're very large, very effective group, and it's kind of nice where we're at right now. Once again, we're in a situation where we have a very strong ally basically as our walls. From our space, we don't have any direct connections to another region without going through Initiative space. So we've got a buffer there, which I don't know if they like being our buffer, but we're going to take advantage of that. That we've got a nice strong ally that's in position to help us if we need it. And of course, we'll support them as much as we can. We're just not anywhere near their size. So this is going to be a good move for the Bastion. It was what we wanted. So fortunately, we got what we wanted, which is good. It's always better when you get what you want.
So the Imperium is not making any big reworks, at least not anything you're tracking on. Is there
just the rental thing is new?
Yeah.
There's no renting in the Imperium period. They don't want it. They're not having it. So the 2 groups that were very big renting, we had a very large rental organization that was very lucrative. It was in growing pains. It was new for us, but it took a little while to get it, settled. But once it did, it ran really well, and it made a lot of risk for us. And we're small, so we don't have a big income coming in. So this will be an adjustment for us. We'll have to figure out new ways to make ISK.
For the members of the audience who maybe don't live in Nullsec, aren't familiar with renting, they're newer to the game, could you give them an overview of like what renting is, and then what was Bastion's take on it? How did you guys run your rental stuff?
Okay, so if you're a smaller group in the game and you want to experience the benefits of Nullsec, because there are benefits to Nullsec when it comes to mining and ratting and things like that. It's a little more lucrative. At least it was. I guess it is. But so you're not big enough to, or you don't feel you're big enough to just join an alliance and go at it and go PvP because your guys all mine. That's all you want to do. There are different groups in the game, and it's been on all sides of the game. Or Nullsec have done this. You take part of your space and you set up another alliance, a secondary alliance, and you put the solve in that alliance's name. And then if you want to rent this system out, say you can rent out system ABC, well, the corp comes to you, they put their corp in that rental alliance, and then they pay you a monthly bill based on what the value of that system or whatever they rent is. And obviously each system has a different value. If it's got great moons, it would be higher, more belts, things like that. And so you'd come and you join that alliance. You don't, in our case, I don't know if it's all cases, in our cases, you don't get to put structures down. The structures are all in the alliance's name, but they're yours to use, right? So if you buy a structure, this is the way we did it. If you bought, let's say you bought an Athenor, you had the alliance put it down for you, and you worked it, and your contract or your lease comes up 6 months later. Well, you don't want to renew it because you found out that it's harder than you thought, and you don't want to go back to Nullsec or HiSec. Well, you don't get the structure back. I mean, it stays in the alliance name. But we were very upfront with all of our renters and explained that to them. Because if you're going to do a system that had a previous renter that put structures up, now you get to use them if you take over that system. That's just the way it works. Kind of sucks for the first person, that first group that puts the structures down, but they go into it knowing that's what they're doing. There was no, gotcha, you can't have it back type thing. We were fortunate enough we didn't have a lot of problems with any of our renters. And once we got it running, we had 2 constellations where we rented, and almost all the systems were rented most of the time.
Yeah, and in my alliance, we have similar rule for structures that rental systems, the large
you cut out.
Large and extra large structures must be alliance owned, but the structures do get returned to the renter if the renter wants them unanchored. And my experience with renting has been that most renters who I interact with are alts of people in the alliance which owns the SOV anyway.
Did experience a lot of that too. Like we had several like alt corps from like Initiative were renting from us, and we had some alt corps of Bastion were renting from them. They wanted the space based on whatever they wanted to do, because it gives you an opportunity for a smaller group to once again get the benefits of Nullsec, not be in a position where they have to do all the PvP that comes with that, right? The way it works for most groups, the alliance, you're part of this coalition or the alliance or whatever. Your PvPers have to defend it and go out and have fun and do stuff, but the PvE guys still have to defend it too. They have to be part of that, which is it's a lot of burden on them, I think, because if I as a PvPer, I come in the game, I PvP, I have fun. If you're a miner, you come into the game to mine to have fun, but you also have to do PvP to protect your area. So it's a bigger stressor on you, and that takes that away a bit when you rent. You're not required to go on fleets or do CTAs. You are required to defend your own stuff, but we'll help if we can, right? And we're upfront about that too. I know some groups will say absolute defense, right? We're upfront. We can't necessarily defend you against everything. We're not the biggest alliance in the world. We'll help where we can, but don't expect it, right? If it's one of those things, if you're expect we're going to be your only defense, then you're going to be losing stuff. So once again, we were very upfront about that.
You get all of the upsides without the, I guess, commitment of being a vassal or a smaller member of the alliance, I see.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned things are going to be different. This is a clean slate. This isn't a case of rebuilding an old damaged house. This is a house that's been completely demolished, and you're building it from the ground up with modern. Yep. So things are going to be different. There's not. Is there going to be the same amount of frills as before?
I think it'd be better. Honestly, this gives us an opportunity to learn from our mistakes of the past, especially when it comes to putting infrastructure up. We put a lot of citadels up in places that didn't need them. Right? Thought we did at the time, but it just. And as everybody knows, it gets to the point where is it worth just keep it up? It's not worth trying to take it down and losing it and things like that. So we've learned from our past mistakes. We're going to try to plan out. We're planning out how we're going to set things up much better. We think it's much better. Who knows? It may be worse, but we're definitely going to learn from that. So that'll be different for us. It is different space than we had. Well, partially different space than we had before. We have one constellation we had before, and then 2 new ones. So that'll be a learning curve for our guys. Learning which belts, how to, every system's different and how it's the idiosyncrasy. So that'll be a learning curve for us. But we're in a position now to take what was using up all of our focus and energy dealing with things from mistakes we made or things we set up. We won't have to do that. We can take that energy and put it toward other things, alliance projects, growing the alliance, things like that.
I mean, to be fair to the infrastructure guys, like back during Rorquals Online when you had boson ratting, you needed more structures. Like the ratting Keepstar was a meme, but it was a useful meme. Like if you could have a Keepstar in the system so that the Titans that are boson ratting can dock up when they're done as opposed to warping to a Fortizar, that was value added. Was it excessive? Yes, but was it an era of excess? Absolutely. So
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
I don't want to knock them too much because it made sense pre-scarcity.
Some of the I say infrastructure mistakes we made, this is something we had to fixing a lot of it. We let anybody put stuff down they wanted, and not everybody knows how to put down a station or a city,
Okay.
right? So we had situations where pointed the wrong direction. They'd be much better if you pointed at the gate or or whatever, at the other structure to go back and forth type deal. There's things like that ended up costing us a lot of time and effort to make right. We're going to nip in the bud at the beginning. We won't make those mistakes this time. We'll, people just didn't think of it. A couple guys did, and we should listen to them.
Yeah.
But it's one of the situations we won't make that mistake this time. So that'll save us a lot of time and effort down the road that we won't have to mess around with it. Things like that. And I think making sure that the right structures are in the right systems too. Because before we kind of let every corp in the alliance, if you wanted this, you do that. There's no certain things they couldn't do, but most everything they could. They could just do whatever structure we want. So you end up with, 3 structures doing the same thing, one jump away from each other. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? We're going to do it smarter.
So
You're
we're
not
going
to make this.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like in my alliance, all structures are alliance owned, so there are a couple of different industry systems, each with different specialization. Like one's specialized for capital production, one's for T1 production, and one's for T2 production, for example.
Yeah, that's the way we want to do it too. Is we're going to own the structures. Now, if a corp wants to put down an Athenor or something like that, that probably won't be a problem. I don't know. We haven't made that decision yet, but things like that. But all the key structures are going to be alliance owned and controlled, and then we'll just run them that way. It's just easier. We did run into the problem the last time we were down here where a couple of different corps put up some structures that were very important to the operation of the alliance when it came to industry, and then they, through no fault of their own, things happen. All of a sudden, there's nobody there that can control the structures, right? Because they put them down themselves and they have anybody in there, and that causes problems. All of a sudden it's out of fuel or whatever, and nobody there can fix it. We don't want those problems to happen. We're going to try once again nip that in the bud, make sure that doesn't happen. I remember the POS situation back in the day. The POSes, the way you'd get banned from putting your own POS up is if you ever screamed for fuel, right? And I like that rule, and I like to keep moving. I try to put that rule in with the Citadels too. I don't want notifications from it ever if it's going to be yours. That's hard to do. So
people not going to make the mistakes of the last time, huh? Right first time edition too.
Well, try. Yeah. I didn't say we're not going to. We're trying not to.
Yeah,
I'm part of the team, so mistakes are going to be made.
Yeah. The thing you said about not everyone knows how to anchor structures, that's the officially stated reason for why, in my alliance, renters, if they want a Fortizar or other structure of that size, they have to have the alliance anchor it.
And then there's also like the ACLs and stuff, right? If you get the ACLs wrong,
that's
you
part
royally
of what it is.
Your whole group.
Yeah, that's the biggest part of not knowing how to anchor a structure properly.
Oh, and you think that sounds dumb, right? That would be super important, but it's super important. Just the anchoring one, pointing the right direction. It makes a huge difference, especially if it's a structure that's going to have large, slow ships coming out of it. If they got to come out of the structure burn a bit, turn around, and then be able to get into warp before they hit the structure again to get to the gate. That's absolutely awful. It takes up so much time over the course of days, weeks, and months, right? It just chews up time.
And if you get the ACL wrong when you're anchoring a Fortizar, then you might have a bunch of hostile caps able to dock in friendly space.
And for those unfamiliar, I see we've got some questions in the chat. And ACL stands for Access Control List. And it's the list of people who can dock in a structure, who can gun the structure, who can change the fitting on the structure, who can change the list of people who are allowed to do all those things. It's effectively the back-end system that controls who can control a structure. So it's incredibly important to the effective running and maintenance of any structure.
Yeah, it's essentially like the corporate page where you get the people's roles and stuff. It's like an alliance level of that. It's maybe it can be done on a corporate level too, but it can
with
be done
much
on
better
UI.
Much better UI.
Yeah.
One that makes sense, and you can. Yeah.
Access control lists are a concept in computer security as well. Who has permissions to do what on a network? So old POSes use the role-based access control model where anyone who has certain roles gets permission to do things, and that's how a lot of old corporation permissions worked. But now CCP is putting stuff based on list-based access control model.
I'd love to see their corporate page move to a more like the ACL look to it and feel to it. It would be much easier. But that's one area Bastion did not have a problem, just because it was so limited on who could make adjustments to our ACLs. We kept it a very, very small group of people, and it helped. And we were pretty reactive too when somebody needed to be on there, right? You didn't have to wait months and figure out all these things. If you need to be on there, we were put on there.
And I can't wait for hangars to have ACLs too, right? You can share between your outs from different corps or different alliances, let's say in HiSec or in Nullsec, right? That'll be really helpful.
Well, with Fountain being resettled and renters no longer becoming a thing for the Imperium, what happens to all the groups that used to rent? What about the old people who resided in Fountain? The groups that weren't, I don't think they were formerly in Bastion or Initiative.
Oh, you talking about the people who were in Infensus?
Infensus or...
Some of them were folded, a couple of them folded into Bastion.
Yeah. Dark Side of the Eclipse, which was mostly Initiative Associates, they're in Initiative proper now.
Yep, they folded all their guys in if they wanted to come. If you didn't want to come, you left, right? We folded a couple in from Infensus. I don't think any of them that did are still with us. I don't quote me on that because I'm not sure. I have to look again. But basically, most of them were small groups, right? So either they joined corps or they weren't to stay with us. They joined corps that were in the Bastion, or they just went back to wherever they were before. At the time when it happened, when we closed Infensus down because of the war, we told them that. I said, hey, when the war's over and we get the rental system set up, come back. Well, we're not going to have that this time. So I haven't talked to the person who ran the Infensus, but I'm going to try to get a hold, see if they've got a list of people we told that to, and we'll just contact them and, hey, guys, sorry, we're not going to be doing the renting. So I would hate to see a group just sitting there waiting to come back out the Fountain and rent from us, and then they never hear anything, and that'd be shitty. I wouldn't want that to happen to me, so I don't want to do that to somebody else.
Real quick, before we move on, we've kind of moved away from the rental subject, but there's some conversation still happening in the chat that's grinding my gears. And like people are saying the rental business is a dirty business and it's gross and so on and so forth. And I'm really curious as to where people are getting that impression. Like me personally, I have rented systems myself just so that I can have a spot where only me and my specific ratting alts can rat, so I don't have to fight for the havens. I have like done that similarly for dread ratting back in the age of abundance. I have also had old friends of mine, old corp mates, who went and joined rental corporations or rental alliances, and they did it because they didn't want to have to deal with the nullsec politics. They didn't want to have to deal with CTAs and with showing up to fight, and they didn't necessarily have the manpower to defend themselves in nullsec, so you pay someone else to do it for you. from their perspective, they're just hiring mercenaries for their own defense and getting access to the more dangerous areas of space, and therefore the higher riches available there to them. So I'm really curious, like, is there some slumlord rental group out there that's screwing people over or something? Because I don't quite understand where all this its gross is coming from.
In the past, way long time ago, renting has been around a long time. There has been incidents where the people renting expected one thing from their landlords, and the landlords weren't planning to do that, and it caused a lot of animosity and a lot of back talk, right? And then it kind of just spread over the time. I don't know of any slumlord renters. I mean, you wouldn't keep doing it, or you'd move on, right? It's not like in real life where you're stuck there because you have nowhere else to go. So I don't think that would be a thing. I think it's just a lot of animosity created because of the rental system between PvEers and PvPers. The miners expected the PvPers to be there to guard them 24/7. Well, the PvPers expected the miners to be joining them on fleets to go do stuff, right? Earn your spot. And they're renting, so they didn't need to do that, and it caused some animosity. And I think that is maybe not the only reason, but I know that's one of the reasons I've been given, or just kind of as grown or festered over the years to become this, renters are gross. And then the other thing I think is they're just mad that they're not getting that money from people renting from them.
I ragged on against renters quite a bit, and I do a lot of PvP and very little PvE. Part of the reason I ragged on it a lot is because, to me, a lot of rental programs are notorious for hosting more questionable areas of EVE, particularly gold farm, ISK farming, and selling it for real world money, which I am very much against.
From my experience, I didn't experience that. I know what you're saying. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It's not out there. It absolutely does. But whether you rent the space or own the space, that can happen, right?
Yeah, it happens, and
I think rental is a really good thing for if it's used the right way. Like people just want a little break from doing stuff on their own, or a group that can't experience Nullsec and wants to, just to see if they like it. It gives them an opportunity to live there a bit and say, "Oh, this isn't for us," or "Yeah, I love this. Let's join. Let's join a new alliance."
Yeah, if I have not rented myself, although I've done stuff in rental space that friends were renting. I have not rented myself, but there is one situation when I pretty much definitely would be renting space. If I left a large Nullsec block alliance, most of the ISK I make nowadays comes from industry, so I'd probably want to set up a renting corp and put my manufacturing alts in there so that I'd have access to a Nullsec industry system with nice rigs that get the nice bonus from being in Nullsec, and that I can expect structures to still be there when my production jobs finish, more likely than whichever smaller group that I would hypothetically join.
And also, I think the whole renting thing represents that in this game, it's not only for PvP, right? So a lot of people think EVE is meant for PvP or made for PvP, but the whole idea of renting shows that this game, a lot of people play this game just for PvE, just for mining, or just for ratting. PvP is not their part of playstyle. So I think it's really good to show there's a choice for those players who choose not to PvP.
If people are looking to get into Solve, you can either join the alliance itself and just be one of the many members, but if you have a group yourself and you want to join, you may have to join one of their other smaller groups. You have to join one of their vassals. That's a tremendous commitment, because then you'll be expected to uphold a certain standard with your group. You would be expected to provide certain manpower to bolster their alliance and their coalition. You are expected to do certain things in order to stay within there. But renting, while you may not necessarily get the same benefits, they may not provide you, say, with a standing fleet, and they may charge you money. It's less commitment. You pay the money, you get the benefits, and at the end of the day, these groups, they do need people to rent, and they do want people to rent, because there are having space is one thing. You don't, but holding space is one thing, but actually, I guess, raking and tilling the land that you have and I guess doing something productive out land and how do I say?
Holding sovereignty in one system is very hard for a small group, right? It's just hard. It's a lot of work to it. But to rent a one system from somebody gives them the opportunity to do those things.
Conquering land is easy, but I guess living off the fat of the land, to quote Of Mice and Men, is a different story.
Now, it can be done. It can be done because I held an entire constellation in Delve for about 6 months before Imperium came in and took Delve. I took it by myself and I held it by myself.
Goran, what's that alliance that has held a constellation for around a decade now? No matter who owns the systems and places surrounding them, they just say we would like to stay here and we won't cause you trouble and we'll pay you to let us stay there.
I'm not sure.
Intrepid Crossing.
Oh, those guys there, aren't they renters from Slice?
They rent from whoever owns. That's their deal. If Slice loses that sovereignty, they approach the people who took it from them and said, "Hey, can we rent it from you?"
Yeah, and like that is an amazing way to maintain stability. They are necessarily the most stable group in EVE Online.
They found a system that works
for them. Think about that
right?
for a minute.
Yeah,
they must make enough ISK to be able to do that. It must be good systems. Yeah.
I can understand though the perspective of if you are in a large alliance or in a large coalition, you want to get the most out of anyone living in your space possible. So there is a component of that which is you want them to be farming the fields, tilling the land, extracting the ISK, but then you also want them to join the fleets and come and defend that space when the time comes, or just add numbers so that your fleets are more impactful and can therefore be more fun. It's a lot more fun to be in an impactful fleet than to be in a small fleet that can't really engage with much content. So from like a larger alliance perspective, there is a motivation there to say we don't want renters because we want every single member who's living in our space to be contributing both in the PvE tilling the land side and also in the PvP joining our fleets and fighting side.
Yeah, I spoke with Baltram during our D&D games, and he spoke about all of his successes, I guess, military-wise, combat-wise, working, fighting alongside Snuff. He's gotten all these R64s that he shares. He's one of the nobles of Crokite. He's got all this highly expensive low-sec ore and expensive, profitable moons.
Is he RPing? Is this an RP thing, or is he being serious?
He's what I'm about to say is serious. While he sits upon all of this, there's nothing he can do with it. Everybody in his alliance are, I guess, warriors. None of them want to mine. None of them want to settle down and start profiting off these moons. They want to fight and fight and fight. And all the yields they've gotten from fighting, all these moons, all these ores, it's worth nothing to him. And he could technically get somebody to rent it, but for some reason, he doesn't. Maybe it's pride, maybe it's something else, but imagine all that you fought for, you can't do anything with it because you just don't have the people that can take full advantage of it. So that's why people would rent it out to, I guess, people who aren't as interested in PvP, but are interested in, the fat of the land.
Yeah.
I don't want to be making mistakes of what I'm trying to say here. I'm not saying renting's bad. Renting was great for the Bastion. We learned from it, enjoyed the ISK, and I see it has a place in the game. Absolutely. I actually kind of sad we're not going to be doing it again. I would have done it on a smaller scale than we did last time. But anyway, it's important to the game, and I think I have no problems with it. If you want to rent. I mean, not everyone has to own a home. You don't have to. It's especially if you don't know where you want to be or what you want to do. It's a good system, and I think people will poo-poo it right out no matter what. It's disingenuous. I mean, it has its place.
I think the removal of passive moon mining a couple of years ago in replacement with Athenors and active moon drilling made renting a necessity for the kind of the kind of corporation or alliance that relied on passive moons for their wealth, like more selective recruiting, high-end PvP alliances.
Yeah, also I think to Rich's point, which is if you own a land, that doesn't give you any income whatsoever. But what can you do to make those land profitable for you, right? Either to rent it out or to use it yourself, right? So rent it out, you get bills from people pay the bills that you give to them, right? Every month or every quarter, however the renting is gonna do. But if you do it yourself, there's ratting, there's mining, all kinds of stuff. Alliances owning Solve is not only for the purpose of owning Solve, right? It's there to make money. You have to make the land profitable or worthwhile to own. Otherwise, nobody is gonna own it, right? There's no point.
If you have Solve or you don't use, right, that's just a negative for your treasury, right? Because your Solve bills are real. If you have Solve somewhere, you have to pay a bill on it. So if you have space, you just have it for a buffer or whatever. It is not being used. Why not rent it out?
Yeah, if you're a PvP group, if you want to, I guess, make use of the land yourself, you have to settle your guys. You have to put up the infrastructure. You have to, hell, maybe you even have to recruit new groups, and that could potentially mean dropping your standards or inviting groups that you or people that you otherwise normally wouldn't mingle with. That's a lot of hassle. It could, technically speaking, be more profitable in the long run, but it's a lot more hassle. It takes a lot more work. Why not just find somebody who will say, yes, I'll pay you this amount, and I'll handle everything on my end myself. As long as you get the bill, they get to take care of all of the hassle below. It's a mutually beneficial agreement.
Yeah, if you're an alliance like Northern Coalition, which wants people to be ready to deploy to whatever campaign they're doing at the time, why would you want your members crabbing in the fields when you could have someone else paying Lady Scarlet to crab?
And what do the Spartans say? They're warriors. They're not part-time warriors, they're full-time warriors. They're not part baker, part warrior, they're full warrior. They'll have the more civilian and less warrior individuals are able to, well, benefit by being part of these, benefit them by being in their renting groups.
Unless you're like me, I'm a warrior poet, so there you go.
Yeah, so on the note of renter alliance, I think one of the alliance that I fought with or have fought before was IGC. So they were renters from Test in Fifth of Aulus. But at the beginning of the war, right, as the war goes on, I think Fifth of Aulus was lost, right? So everyone was moving to the west side of the map, right? So IGC got left behind, and they were kind of holding their own solve, and they were their own boss for a while, and now they're part of Imperium, right? So we do see those kind of renter lines to be forced into a corner sometimes to make their own decisions.
As well as that, some of these rental groups, they are also fledgling new groups that need somewhere to start. And these renting groups eventually can become part of proper alliances. They can become small powerhouses within groups themselves, simply because they are given the right conditions to grow.
So on the note of IGC, Domanark, do you know what's the plan for IGC since they're part of Imperium? Are they going to own land in Fountain with you guys, or where are they going to be?
That I don't know. That has not been shared with me. I don't know if there's been a decision made. Well, no, matter of fact, I do know there's a decision has been made because that was told to us that it's all been figured out, but I don't know where they're going. I know initially with Bastion because we're next to each other, and then I knew about oh my god, I'm drawing blank their name. French Connection. I knew about them, so that's it.
So Carneros brought up in the chat, and I think he's even mentioned it on one of his Carneros and Chill streams, that IGC proved themselves during the war and have been given membership to the Bastion, if I'm understanding correctly. I think I even saw like a Reddit post where they were doing things and Carneros was drinking champagne.
Yeah, I don't think it's announced yet either. I have not heard it, and if I haven't heard it, it means it shouldn't be talked about.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
I'm blowing up
when you start, it's joining
I've
the
heard about it,
Imperium, not the Bastion.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Carneros clarified they're joining the Imperium, not the Bastion. So we don't know where they're going, but they are definitely staying with the Imperium, which, if memory serves, that is like one of the first groups to join the Imperium in a long time, right? Like one of the first established groups.
Siberian Squad.
Siberian Squad was the last one.
Mid-war.
Siberian Squad is the first one to join during the war, and I think later on in the war,
French Connection was not officially part of the Imperium until a few weeks into the war, although they were very close with the initiative even before, and the initiative moved their super capital fleet to cover the extraction of French Connection's staging Keepstar in 7RM in Pureblind a month or so before the war, which is when I thought that meant they were officially part of the Imperium.
They definitely proved themselves also, though. I mean, they did a really good job.
Yeah, fair enough. I do want to mention, because it feels like we're rounding down, before we move on, we are in a time of rebuilding, and I know there are a lot of EVE players out there, I'm sort of one of them, who really enjoys the rebuilding phase, because rebuilding is a time of opportunity. It's when you get to make long-term decisions on how you want to set up your infrastructure, how you want to organize your groups, organize your leaderships. People have the opportunity to step up into new roles that are literally being created. And so it is an amazing time. A lot of players I would expect are coming back. And if you're one of those returning players who are coming back to EVE, and you've been gone for a long time, or even a little bit of time, Carneros is going to be doing a returning pilots reorientation stream this Friday at 1800 on twitch.tv/CCP. We'll try and make sure we get them hosted as well, so that you get a notification when they go live. But definitely go check that out. Follow the CCP stream. If you haven't seen Carneros, he also does the Carneros and Chill streams on that channel, which is fantastic vibes. It's on Tuesday nights, technically Wednesday mornings, EVE time at 0200. But if you're coming back to the game, you want to get back into it in this fantastic time of rebuilding opportunity, the economy is coming back up because scarcity is going away. Get yourself reoriented. Join Carneros for that stream Friday, this coming Friday at 1800 EVE time. twitch.tv/CCP.
There aren't many people out there who have a better understanding and grasp on how most of this stuff works in Carneros. If you need, he's a very, very nice person to listen. He's easy to listen to. It'd be a good show for you on Friday.
He's pleasant to listen to. Shall we close this off with, I guess, a farewell to... I don't think they were renting groups, but they were a smaller group. They were a vassal. This would be Requiem Eternal.
Yeah, they were a smaller legacy alliance. They were not a renter group.
They were a smaller vassal group of legacy, and they had a bit of a storied experience in the war, with one of their directors betraying them and closing down their alliance and causing some issues. But unfortunately, Requiem Eternal has reported that on the 1st of September, they'll be closing their doors, and their membership and corporations within will be dispersed into, well, wherever those groups are most likely to go to next. I presume most likely Legacy, perhaps Horde, maybe Winter Coalition, and maybe even Brave. But Requiem Eternal is no longer eternal. This is their Requiem.
Do I have it right that they used to be Requiem Eternal, then they reformed the Alliance into Eternal Requiem?
Yeah. One of the Alliance directors who had Holding Corp access disbanded the Alliance back around January or February, I think. And then they reformed the Alliance with... that director decided to do a smash and grab, steal whatever he could in a short period, and then join Goonswarm. my corporation had to deal with something like that a couple of years ago, back when we were a longtime member of Circle 2.
Unfortunately, but yes, Javier has taken this out to everybody in Eternal Requiem that they don't foresee themselves rebuilding, and it's for himself and FYT, another one of Eternal Requiem's leadership. It's too much, and they've decided that it's time to put things aside and let it go.
Yeah, honestly, Requiem was fairly low activity for a while by this point, and they were essentially on life support, propped up by the fact that Legacy formed Voltron fleets as the whole coalition.
Well, with the
so it's not a surprise that a lot of their smaller alliances are disbanding after the war.
Yeah, it's I think one of many. Rosette Regnum closed, already replaced his, I believe, closed, right?
I'm not sure what's happening with Rosetta Regnum closed and reformed as Sentinel Dawn, but I'm not sure what's happening with Sentinel Dawn either.
It seems this war for Legacy has crumbled some of their smaller vassal groups. The renting groups can just move on to somewhere else, but these smaller vassal groups that committed things, well, they commit things, and I guess for them to depart is not as easy as the rental groups who can just simply, just stop paying the bill and move on. These groups, these vassals are committed, so in some ways, renting is superior when you've
That's kind of what Villy said would happen, that it would either destroy his coalition or destroy the Imperium.
Well, it's unfortunate to see Eternal Requiem go. I hope they'd be able to survive that betrayal. As for the renting wise, is there anything that we should cover?
I do want to quickly, before we move on from the Eternal Requiem thing and Legacy, like with Legacy, they were the coalition as a whole, and the way that it brought in smaller new alliances was very much experimental. I had never seen it before in my time in Eve. Now, granted, I haven't been around the whole time, but it was not normal for a coalition to just bring in these very much small new alliances and just let them in, let them have space, and sort of be an incubator for newer alliances. It was very much these sorts of alliances, Requiem Eternal, Federation Uprising, when they moved in, like a lot of the alliances which were joining Legacy would have historically been turned away from other coalitions. They would have said, no, get out of here. They would have been farmed like Brave was historically farmed like crazy. Legacy letting them in was very much experimental. As for whether or not that experiment would have worked if Legacy did not go to war with the Imperium, I don't really know. Like, would these alliances have survived if they didn't go through a massive war, the biggest that EVE Online has ever seen? I don't think we'll ever know. I personally, for the sake of EVE and for the sake of cultivating new alliances and organizations, I hope some other coalition decides to pick up the mantle and starts incubating these starter alliances, these mid-scale who don't quite have all the members or all the infrastructure or even like the what's the term for knowledge, the institutional knowledge to run a long-term alliance. Like, everybody's got to start somewhere, and I hope that a new incubator starts up somewhere. That way we can have newer groups and newer alliances forming again.
Honestly, I don't think I would have ever said this a year and a half ago or more, but it looks like Wrecking Crew is starting to be that.
Oh, I thought I was going to say Volta.
Yeah, but we do see problems with this kind of coalition forming, right? If you listen to the Evictus Town Hall, I think their leader talked about it, which is the small alliances don't get any choice in terms of militarily, right? So you're being with the coalition fleet, you're being with the Voltron fleets, right? You don't really have any choice over your military choice, right? So if the alliance says, if let's say Test says we're going to go for this war, a lot of leaders in those kind of small alliances, they don't really have that much of a say to their decisions. So I mean, with a coalition like this, they're doing experiments. To see them falling definitely shows there is, I wouldn't say negative, but a problem with this kind of coalition style of accepting very, very new alliances into a coalition.
Okay, I mean, it certainly has its problems, yeah. But if alliances don't form and don't have a place to start like that, where do they start? Where does an alliance in Eve, I don't know the Eve year, YC something or other, Eve of this year in this current era, where does an alliance begin? Do you want to start the next big Nullsec alliance? How does that happen?
You get a disgruntled, ambitious, recently battle-tested and well-proven FC split off and pull a bunch of companions and do his own thing. I think.
Are you talking about Dreadbomb?
I'm also talking about Trigger Happy.
They're dead now, right?
They're dead. Well, they're dead now, but for a period of time.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, I tell you what.
It's got the best track record.
We aren't going to sit here and have the answers on how to start the next big alliance, but one thing I do know for sure, if you're going to start an alliance, you need some players, and the only way for a player to start is with the new player experience. Rich, you want to take it away?
Okay, yesterday, Eve's new NP, that would make it Eve's new player experience. They have improved the new play experience, which is kind of interesting given how fresh I am to Eve. Just about scraping 2 years now, and I didn't get this when I started in the game. But if you're starting Eve now, or if you like to try it out now in the Singularity test server, or if you're seeing this in the future and it's already happened, you get to experience the new player experience. It's made to help players get into Eve, because Eve is notoriously difficult to get into, with the whole skill point system, the skill training, even the attributes. It's a very old game with some old mechanics, and in the past, video games were far less forgiving. This doesn't mean it was good game design or bad game design, but I think TCP is trying to do away with the old tedium, and they're trying to make Eve more accessible to more people. So in September, they will launch the AIR New Play Experience, or as you call it, AIR NPE, and that'll be their first chapter in making the game more accessible to newer players. You can test it right now in Singularity, which I believe we'll be bringing up some footage of. Correct?
Yeah, we've got it live, so we can roll through it while you guys talk through it. I played through the entire NPE earlier on. What's everybody else's experience with it so far?
So just quickly, AIR stands for Association for Interdisciplinary Research.
Thank you, Shen. I was trying to figure out what they stood for, and the game doesn't tell you. I'm sorry, I got way too excited. This entire NPE, it is probably just a me thing, but throughout the entire thing they say AIR when they're referring to the AIR, but they never explain what it means, and that drove me nuts. So thank you that now I know it. Association for Interdisciplinary Research. Thank you, Shen.
Even
I mean, it's in the devlog, so yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's not in the game.
Yeah,
Who
it's
reads
not.
devlog?
Okay. That's the point, right? I think they should include that into the game. So like, it's not like a mythological corporation that's located in like Jovian space or something like that, right?
Even the new player experience, they cannot help but make jargon that people don't understand. And with this, devlog comes 2 other devlogs. The second one, actually, I don't know which order these are technically in, and I don't really want to check right now because they should have been They all released at the same time.
So there are two devlogs. One is, so technically there were three that was put up by CCP yesterday. So there's one about new player experience. There's one about skill points, or the new skill point systems, and there's one about align to gate. So align to gate is the name of the next update. That update includes the skill training update and the new player experience one, as far as I understand.
Before we go into that, I missed something.
So
with the new player experience, there will be new tools, new visuals, new functionality. They're going to make things pretty, more pretty. There's going to be more dynamic visuals. There's going to be a UI reveal, which I do have somebody's Yurio Antonucci. His Twitter has some images of some UI differences.
Do you want to pull up that thingamabob before we get going? That Uriel tweet, because that is a fantastic comparison. Great starting off point to sort of review like where we were in the past compared to now.
So where we were in the past is as I've opened up right now. That's what things used to look like. This is how you train skills. You had to go through these different subfolders. You had to find the skills, and you had to add it to a training queue. And the training queue before this update kicks in, was short. Now this update eventually should kick in. The training queue, the maximum length, is going to be longer. It's going to be easier to train.
So just numbers. So right now, the max skill you can put into your skill queue for Omega players is 50, right? And then after this change, it will be 150. And before this change for Alpha players, your max skill, the number of skills you can put into your skill queue was limited to a day. So right now, you can, let's say, you have skills up to 23 hours and put another skill for let's say 10 days. That will work, right? So you won't, so your second last skill won't exceed 23 hours with the addition of the previous ones. But right now, they're removing that limitation as well. So both Alpha and Omega players has this limit of 150 skills that you can put into your skill queue, right? Why they did that? In the devlog, I think later on they explain it was a technical issue that they could not deal with in the past, but right now they found the spaghetti code or whatever, and they can solve it right now, and they solved that, and right now they improved it to 250.
Well, I'll show you right now what it looks like. This is before. This is way before. So this is before my time even, and this is after. It looks so clean. The queue is big.
So just to clear up, so the 5 million skill point cap for Alpha players are still there. They didn't mention anything about that cap. So that will stay.
Yeah, one of the big changes from the skill queue that a lot of players have asked for is it used to be side by side. So on the left, you'd have your skill browser, where you can browse all the skills that are available. And on the right, you have the queue. And so you could very easily drag into any spot in your queue. So if you wanted something high in your queue, it was easy. If you wanted something low in the queue, it was easy. On the current skill queue, it's top and bottom. So your browser's on the top, your skill queue's on the bottom, and depending on the height of your screen, it can be very difficult to view a good portion of your queue. And so you've just got to drag and hold and let your queue down at the bottom scroll through in what is sometimes a very clunky fashion to get the skills to reorder where you want them to be. It was very much of an experience that frustrated a lot of players who had experienced that previous side-by-side skill queue. Definitely a visual improvement going from the original to our current state, but I'm glad to see that they're continuing to improve visually to our future state, but also bringing back that side-by-side functionality, because it definitely makes it easier to manage your queue.
It's so clean, it's so fresh. I'm glad to see these new UI changes. It hopefully should make the game more, up to what a lot of modern AAA modern games look like these days, with their fancy UI and sleek buttons.
Also worth mentioning, the skill groups are now organized alphabetically. So armor is first, etc., etc. As to previously, it was organized in a topical fashion where they put what they thought was important or someone decided this was the order it needed to be in, but none of the players could ever figure it out. So we're all glad that we're going to alphabetical now.
Let's not get sidetracked. We're talking about new player experience today, right?
Okay. With the new play experience, I have some CCP examples opened up. There, obviously, we've mentioned the new Aura assistant girl, cutie. But there'll be some new art assets, new station assets, things to, well, just make the game shine, make the game look better rather than what we're old and used to. And CCP mentions new players are the lifeblood of the community. Yeah, it is. It's what keeps the beast that is the game. It keeps it alive. It keeps things flowing. It brings oxygen in. It moves the stagnant blood and gets that moving as well.
Yeah, I think
there's a lot of focus on the new players now.
It's worth mentioning, if you want to scroll back up a bit to that screen where they had the nodes. Yeah, that one. Let me maximize it for the stream. So this is something that I think people misunderstood. If you play through the new player experience, it is very short, which is good. Like, you don't want a tutorial to take a new player 6 hours to go through. A tutorial is not a fully fledged AAA game, guys. It's a tutorial. Eve is complicated, but you need to not lock people in for too long or they're gonna leave. But I think this is the piece, the back-end piece, that us as players otherwise wouldn't get to see, that is taking so long and so much work, but also what is going to pay the most dividends. The ability of CCP to quickly respond to player feedback, to iterate on this system, to have a tool which lets them realize, hey, this notification is missing, or this is confusing to our players, or this new feature needs to get introduced now during the new player experience. This backend system with the nodes and all that nonsense that I frankly don't understand is, I think, the biggest part of this new player experience. And unfortunately, it's something that we can't experience firsthand. Like, we can't go into their dev systems and play with this new tool. But this is probably what's taken the lion's share of the dev time to build, and it's also probably what's going to be the lion's share of the benefit we see in terms of new player retention, because they're always going to be able to improve the NPE. It can always get better. This lets them make it better faster. So I think that's the big key takeaway. Don't play through the NPE and be like, meh, CCP spent this much dev time and this is all we get as a result. No, what we see as players playing through the NPE is the tip of the iceberg, and this system on the back end is where the true dividends are going to come from.
I just came to...
And also each step is related to ID. So let's say if you want to report to CCP, this step doesn't work, or what part of this step doesn't work, so you can always report the ID that we can see associated with each step.
You have to... Well, I want to raise this up because I just came to this sort of sad realization. Once you experience the Eve UI and you get used to it, you can't really provide useful feedback anymore because you're not truly a new player with no idea what you're doing. And with CCP testing these things, each new player that they test it with, if they want a totally fresh new player, there's only a limited amount of feedback they can get, and then that player will get too used to it. This requires a lot of testing, a lot of people really have to think, what type of ways would a new player who isn't used to this system, how would they get lost, how would they break it somehow, how would they do something you would completely not expect. And it takes a lot of time to work on this. This node graph editor looks like a David Cage storyboard.
Yeah, and also in here, so just talking about the tutorial itself, when you first enter the game, you're no longer in a convent, you're in a STRO. So they tell you how to board a ship in space. They tell you your armor is broken, you have to fit armor repair on and repair your armor and stuff like that. I think part of the irony will be after you completed the tutorial, after your asteroid blows up, right, and you want another asteroid, right, for your first ship in Eve or something like that, and you find that ship's like 100 million or something like that.
I watched Suetonia play through the new player experience, and I also saw that they got NPCs that will help you in combat. You can have your very first friend, albeit as an AI form. So but that also does teach players, I guess, that there is the possibility of somebody to support you in the game. The NPC will shield boost you during that entire sequence to keep you alive and help you out. It's kind of a warm feeling thinking about it, actually. Wish I had a friend to do that for me.
I tell you what, you also get the first Eve experience of your friend betraying you, because when you get to the end of this freaking combat, our boy Balin Ferris here, he's like, I'm gonna save you. Go jam the Macarial so our industrial ships can get away. And dude's 7 kilometers away from you, but can't manage to turn on his freaking remote shield boosters. So you're sitting there getting slowly chipped down by these stupid Macarials for like 2 minutes, and then as soon as you're in Hull, Balin's like, oh no, I couldn't reach you in time, you're gonna die. Balin, you let me die. It was a conscious choice. You were in range the whole freaking time. Just admit it. Don't try and act like you're my friend. You sacrificed me to save the industrials. Just admit it and move on.
Me. Now the players can get their idea of first taste of betrayal straight out the door. New player experience. Is that everything we have to talk about, I guess, the new player experience blog? Because we have got 2 more left.
So just, I think one thing that I would like to see, I think after the tutorial, after the new tutorial is maybe some new changes to the career agents, as often that will be the next step for a lot of new players, right? So this is only getting new player onto the hook of Eve, right? And after that, you need to feed them with more delicious or more interesting content that they want, right? So I think first step of that, or a lot of times what all players tell new players, is to complete the career agents and then ask a lot of like questions to like players, not the AI.
Well, brave new world. Shall we go to the skill training update? The skill plans. We covered this a bit yesterday, but not, well, in a bit of detail, but not as much as we could. The new skill plans update, the update to skill training, allows you to essentially create your own skill training plan. And like somebody can share drag and drop a fit into a chat and share it, you should be able to drag and drop these skill training plans somewhere or have them saved, ready to give them out. So you too can, I guess, drag it into the right channel and share your awful skilling plans for everybody to use. Or if you've got a friend that you want them to immediately start skilling into a Vexor, you can tailor a plan just for them. Or if you want to start doing a lot of PI, or we all know what this is going to be used for, ganking, you can just quickly set up the skill plan on a character with just a single drag and a few clicks once you've got the skill plan set up.
Or great for spinning up a few reaction alts.
So, skill plans. Before, what a lot of groups did to get people trained into the right skill plans, they would have pages, or a text file or something, with the skills that they want you to train. Sometimes they'll have programs like EveMon to help you manage and show you and predict what certain things you should do to train into certain ways and to optimize it. And this was honestly a bit obnoxious to share skill plans this way. But what this update does is you can plan it out, and it will show whoever receives a skill plan just how long it will take, how much money will the skill books cost, and you can just have it already shared out and ready. I believe CCP has already made some of their own, so people can get into Treasure Hunter skill plan, which will help them get into exploration as soon as possible.
And on that note, you can also copy paste. So it's possible to copy paste or to give out those skill plans on mass scales. So I think one thing we talked about yesterday, which is suicide ganking, right? So and with the removal of the cap for the amount of skills that you can have, like it was before it was 24 hours, and now it's like 150 of them, right? So you can basically farm up a shit ton of suicide gank elves and then let them grow, right? 10 at a time, and then as soon as you use one up, next one comes. So with every updates like this, there is going to be a positive and there's going to be what I would call a negative side to it, right? It's all it differs from people's perspective on each update.
Well, you'll be able to save up to 10 personal skill plans, which you can share and use with your friends or your alts. Do you think this is going to see an increase to ganking?
Not really.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see increase of ganking, but it would make it easier for people to farm up gank elves.
Yeah, if somebody wasn't ganking before, it's not because they couldn't manage to put the skills in their skill queue. Like, let's be honest, if people weren't ganking, they had better reasons to not be ganking than I don't want to manage my skill queue on my alpha alt.
Exactly. It's just for people who are already doing it right now, it makes their life a bit easier in some way.
And quite frankly, I'm happy to make their lives easier, because it makes mine easier as well. This isn't just an improvement to the ganker skill queue, this is an improvement to everyone's skill queue. This is an improvement to every new player's experience with, okay, I've started this game, what do I train? I also love this milestone thing now that I'm getting a better hang of it. And now that I understand, you can have milestones without having all the skills in your queue. So one of the things that's very common, and I did this as a new player myself, is you'd be given a skill plan. But then you'd be like, okay, I'm trying to train up to be an industrialist, but I also want to go rat, or I also need to be Logi for my alliance's fleet, and I need to be contributing on that military side. So I'm going to have to deviate from the plan, prioritize what skills I'm training, and you get lost on your skill plan. So what I like about these milestones is you can reprioritize all you want, and it will just keep tracking for you what is your end goal. How are you progressing towards that end goal? And with the milestones, it's like smaller little bits and pieces to help you making those prioritization decisions. So to me, now that I better understand how these milestones work, initially I thought they were cool looking, wouldn't impact much. Now that I understand you can separate them, I think it could be, for the discerning player, a very powerful tool of helping you prioritize even when you're diverting from a pre-made skill plan, which would be pretty cool. Also, I really, really like how when you look at a particular plan, it's got a text blurb and you can like link fits and stuff into it. I think that's going to be incredibly useful. CCP didn't have to add that functionality. I'm sure it took a crap ton of dev time, and I really appreciate it, because that is very useful to allow people to share not just the skill plan, but also the context of what it's used for. As an example, a doctrine ship. You want to fly your new dread on your dread alt, here are all the skills you need, here's some context on why you need those skills, etc., etc.
Well, I can't wait for certain people to complain that their fittings and certified skill plans are being stolen and shared for everybody else to use. But wow, we can see that they've made 4 certified plans: Explorer, Treasure Hunter, Exploration, Enforcer. That would be PvP and mission running, apparently. Industrialist and Soldier of Fortune, I believe that. Okay, Soldier of Fortune, I believe that is actually PvP. Enforcer would be PvE.
Yeah, and these are just categories for the time being. So I'd imagine you can have more categories going forward, because within the Enforcer, as an example, there's the Galente Enforcer, which walks you through the skill plan for a Galente pilot. Then there's Caldari, Minmatar, Amar. So there are 4 categories of plans, but for Explorer, Enforcer, and Soldier of Fortune, within each category, there's also 4 separate plans, or more in the case of Soldier of Fortune, for each race, which is really cool. The Industrialist, you've got even more broken out, not by race, but by what you want to do. Do you want to manufacture? Do you want to haul? Do you want to mine? Are you Alpha or Omega, etc.? So this is 4 categories, but there's a lot more once you start diving deep into it.
Yeah, this is going to be a tremendous amount of help. I'm at a loss for words right now.
I think part of things we talked about yesterday, I'll bring here up again, which is a production line of new players, right, into meanings for Nullsec. A lot of Nullsec will use this, right, for their doctrineships, right? So before, let's say, if you're given a fitting of, let's say, a meaning, right, what you can see is what skills that I need to a certain level that I can fly this ship, right? You can fly a fit doesn't mean you can use it well, right? So for example, sometimes we require artillery specialization to 3 or 4, right? Heavy assault cruiser skill, so the ship skill to level 3 or 4, right? So before when you need to fly a Munich, you just need a level 1, right? When you need to use T2 artillery, you just need level 1 for that. But right now, you can have levels that you need to require for level 3 or level 4. That's minimum, let's say, to be in this fleet.
What is my purpose? You fly Munin and hit F1. Oh my
it's
God.
more advised if you spread the guns into like 4 and 1. Yeah.
Well, you know what? You could include the milestone thing into your Munin training plan, so you can give them that extra hit of dopamine once they can use T2 guns.
Yeah, so if you compare this to a very similar thing that we kind of have before this thing was introduced, which is called the mastery tab in each ship, right? So each ship has a mastery tab that you can look at to tell what kind of level, or so there's level 1 to level 5, I think. So that there is each milestone that you can reach on each ship. Right, so I think it was similar to that, but that was related to only the ship itself. But now when you have milestones on each fit, that can be directly related to the fit itself, not the ship, right? Because a ship can be fitted for different purposes to use in different scenarios.
This will be coming in the September release, and they'll be adding corporate skill plans, as well as more other improvements. And they want feedback for this, most importantly.
I think my biggest piece of feedback is when I go to create a plan. Let's imagine that I'm Eve Uni, and I've got tons and tons and tons of skill plans saved on my wiki in the old copy-paste format, and I want to turn those into these new skill plans. I want to be able to just copy-paste that old skill plan into here. But you can't do that. You have to go in and manually add. Now, one thing they did do, which is nice, is I can add Galente Tactical Destroyer, and it will fill in Galente Destroyer 5, Frigate 3, all the way up. So it'll fill in the prereqs, which is good. That's good if you're ad hoc building one from scratch. But for all the players and all the organizations who have pre-built skill plans from the old system of copy-paste just into your skill queue itself, they need to allow us to copy-paste that old skill plan into this skill plan content to save a whole bunch of time.
Shall we move to the final blog that of the 3?
The final one's just the Quadrant blog, right? The aligned whatever.
Yeah.
We don't know if that's a Quadrant block or if that's just an update block, right? So, I mean, I think the next update is called Align to Gate, but I don't know if the next Quadrant is called Align to Gate.
You're right, Shen. You're totally right. For those unfamiliar, CCP's current dev release scheme is the year is split up into quadrants. Each quadrant has a theme, and then within each quadrant there are different releases. So an example, I can't think of a quadrant name, hopefully somebody else can think of one, but an example of a release would be the Hunter's Boon release, or the Great Heist, or whatever it was called, the Grand Heist. Those were updates, and so the Align to Gate release is like those. I'm not sure if this is going to fall into the Quadrant 2 or the next Quadrant. Because Quadrant started a bit late this year, didn't they, right?
Yeah, so maybe what we can see is between now and this update coming to life, we can see a formal quadrant block that will be given to us at some point, right? Maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks time, right? So we'll see. So right now we're in the foundation quadrant, right? For example, this is quadrant 2 of 2020. So we're in the foundation quadrant, and then we don't know when's the next one yet, because I think technically we should start in August, right? So it was for this foundation quadrant, it was May, June, July, and the next one will be August, September, October, and then the fourth quadrant will be November, December, and January. I think that was the plan that they had going forward. But right now we're at the end of August. Well, we still haven't heard anything about the third quadrant of the year. So maybe it's coming, maybe it's not. We have to wait.
I'm excited personally. I am very optimistic in terms of what this new skill queue is going to mean for both veteran players and for new players, and more specifically the interaction of veteran players training up new players. I'm also more excited than most people from what I gather about this new player experience, specifically not the current implementation they have in the game. If the current implementation they have in the game is that way for more than 3 months, then I think it would be a failure on CCP's part. Like the whole thing of this new NPE system is the backend that lets them iterate quickly and respond to player feedback. So if they use that tool effectively, I think it's going to be game changing in terms of the amount of player retention we can have, and therefore game changing in terms of the EVE Online community. But it's all a matter of can CCP follow up on that constant iteration on player feedback, and I think that's what we're going to see over the coming months.
It should be should be released sometime in September. Testing is currently going on the Singularity test server, and they are looking for feedback and to iron out any kinks before they release it.
What I would say is I want Quadrant 3 to be here as soon as possible, right? Because if they're delaying Quadrant 3, that means they're delaying Quadrant 4, which will be the beginning of the end of scarcity, right? So we have to wait.
You just want to get back to
wouldn't
crabbing,
that be
don't you?
great though? Like they just have a really late Quadrant 3 and Q4 just never happens, so scarcity's permanent. I'm on board. Sign me up. Man, all these null bears on this panel. Rich, I thought you were a PvPer. Where are my wormhole folks at? Where are my small gangers at?
I've
Scarcity for life.
Spent a bit too much time with some null bears. I've heard their concerns. I've become sympathetic to their plight.
You got bribed by a sugar daddy, and now you're selling out on the show. We got you, Rich. It's okay.
Finally, Rich, you finally understand what we were been asking for the past 2 years.
No, I don't. You've been controlling this game for far too long. It's about time the social caste system was flipped up on its head. May the PvPers uprise. May we dominate.
Well, Nullsec PvP is also PvP, right? So I mean, are you calling those 150,000 people fighting not PvP? Huh?
All right, we've lost
strong. Okay.
I mean, to some point, Artimus, you started this threat, okay?
Well, yeah, but I was right, though. You see, I was right. Scarcity should be permanent. Y'all are just going on about nonsense. Caste systems, flipping the script. Like, forget about that. Just skip Q4.
That you're part of a null,
Let scarcity
stay. Part of null is not gonna stay.
Yeah.
Let's end this.
How can scarcity be real when you have people like Hateless tearing apart the Triglavian prices? Well,
scarcity I didn't really feel like it affected me personally. So if abundance is coming back, I'm looking forward to however much I'm going to start making.
Grigoran, you say scarcity doesn't affect you, yet you are no longer part of the Pandemic Horde Dreadnought stimulus program because they cannot afford to give out Dreadnoughts.
To some degree, that's
Yeah,
not thanks to scarcity. That is production update. Okay, that's what fucked up Dread's price. Okay.
Yep.
Very well.
Don't give everything the credit to scarcity. Okay, it has done a ton of bad things, but it's not everything that CCP has done. That is questionable to say the least.
You know what? It probably affected your content.
I received a Dreadnought from the stimulus before it ended.
Oh, well, I think it also has affected your game because there are fewer Rorquals out there. There's fewer whaling fleets. There's fewer drops anymore. There's just...
Well, there are a lot more Rorquals out in my alliance's space than there were a month ago.
I mean, there was also a war. You know? Remember that? Half of Eve versus the Imperium or whatever? The Blue Donut Delve on fire?
No more
Ring a bell?
No more dropping on this poor guy with 6 Rorquals multi-boxing, because now he no longer can afford to have 6 Rorquals because scarcity is there and abundance is gone.
Oh, you poor guy. You can't multi-box 6 Rorquals. What has the world come to? Alright, I'm gonna get my salty, sarcastic self off this stream. Can we wrap this up before I say something that's gonna get me in trouble?
Well, we'll wrap this up with a cosplay competition, which I am now desperately looking at the various fabrics, robes, and props I have in my house to get into a costume. Dress to Kill cosplay contest incoming. Get ready. There is a cosplay contest, and that is going to be happening 20th of September to the 24th. That is almost precisely 1 month away.
Okay, so Shen, I think I have good news for you, right? Here's my tinfoil. Scarcity is ending so that the crabs and the bots come back, so that during GM week we have a proper crop of supers to teleport into Youlai for everyone to kill. You're gonna have scarcity over by next month.
I want that supers to teleport into my hangar, not to Youlai.
Yeah, maybe they'll do what they did in previous Youlai executions and include the titans of people who have been banned for a long time.
Yeah, it would
Man,
be nice.
I want to see titans of people who have been banned today, or last week, recently.
Yeah, when's the last time we had a security update? They used to do those like on a quarterly basis, right? Yeah, I don't remember. Let's get back to this cosplay thing. Rich, what are you doing? What's your cosplay gonna be? Can you give us a sneak peek?
I am probably going to go grab my golden robes stashed somewhere within this villa, and I'm going to probably cosplay a very proud Amar noble.
Amar Victor!
Or perhaps I'll get something more skimpy out and I'll portray myself as one of those Caldari capitalists that Dr. Sparta would probably hate me for.
So, you know what would be really cool with the Youlai executions?
Absolutely not. The contest will be on the 20th of September and it will last 4 days. They ask you to get cosplaying and post your pictures on social media platforms. There will be... Oh, prizes! Prizes are 1,000 plex... Sorry, $1,000, 2,000 plex, an Eve watch, a Rifter USB hub, male and female apparel, and a special item. That is interesting. I'm going to try and get those. Second place would be $500, 1,000 plex, the Rifter USB hub, apparel. Third and fourth place, $250, 500 plex, the same as. And the community prize would be 1,000 plex, an Eve watch, and a Rifter USB hub.
So is the community prize like the community will vote and pick their favorite, and then there's going to be a CCP voting through the GMs? Do I understand that right?
Yes,
we'll be running a
that will be the
community
case. Yeah, the community vote will be EVE Online forums will select a crowd of finalists to vote across for one additional winner.
Right on.
But it seems the first, second, third, and fourth prize will be selected by CCP themselves. I am tempted, but I'm not too sure if I want to shave my head bald as Richman is in game. I'm still got a head of hair that I intend on keeping for as long as possible.
I mean, you can get a bald cap, right?
No.
Why not?
No. Absolutely not.
If I got a bald cap, I wouldn't be able to fit all my hair in it.
Alright, fair enough.
I am interested. I am curious to what the EVE or wristwatch is. I don't really have a watch. That would be a useful item to my collection if I'm able to get that. But I think, is there anything else that we should discuss?
Well, do we have time to discuss Rocket X's town hall and deployment announcement for the next regional war that we're going to see in EVE?
Yes, I want to talk about that, but I feel like we should commit a whole show to it. Thoughts?
Yeah, let's talk about that tomorrow.
Right on. So tune in tomorrow, 23:59 EVE time, give or take 15 minutes. Whoa! Thank you for the gift subs, Nick. We appreciate it. Tune in tomorrow where we talk about a deployment. Wrecking Crew versus Fire Coalition? Question mark?
Yep. Because maybe in a year or two we'll talk about them deploying against whichever coalition Severance joins next.
No matter where you go, he'll find you. Tune in. Tune in next time. This was Talking in Stations. I'm Richman, your host. We had Artimus hosting and talking this time. Gregorin. And also Shen. We'll see you next time.
And Domanark, but he had to move.
And also Domanark, yeah.
Oh, Domanark, he had to run. Oh, I missed him. But we'll see you next time.